Good morning, everyone. Let's get started. We're so thrilled you're here. The place is packed, so it must mean that Ken Turan's in the house. This is one of my favorite Sundays of the entire 52, when Saint Kenneth Turan comes to address one of the highest holy days in the All Saints liturgical calendar, the day of the Oscar Awards. Our speaker is the film critic for the Los Angeles Times and National Public Radio's Morning Edition, as well as the director of the Los Angeles Times Book Prizes. He's been a staff writer for the Washington Post, as well as the Times book review editor. A graduate of Swarthmore College and Columbia University's Graduate School of Journalism. He teaches film reviewing and nonfiction writing at USC. His most recent books are Never Coming to a Theater Near You and Free for All, Joe Papp, The Public, and the Greatest Story Ever Told. And we have on sale today his amazing book, Not to Be Missed. That's the name of the book, which is also not to be missed. 54 favorite films from a lifetime of film. Now, I must say what I enjoy saying about Ken the most, and that is, I love showing up where Ken shows up in non-cinematic venues. He is a member of our sister temple, Leo Beck, and whenever I'm there, he's there to be formed and deeply etched in the values of the prophets of the 8th century before the Common Era. And he and I show up at Human Rights Watch dinners together every year to make sure that those prophetic values are carried forward in interrupting human rights violations throughout the globe. Here's a man who not only knows his stuff about cinema and has amazing writing chops and speaking chops in his critique, but is a person whose heart is centered in the values of All Saints Church, Leo Beck Temple, and all universal activists and people who find themselves in solidarity with the best that human beings can do, interrupting the worst that human beings can do. So it gives me great pleasure and thrill and honor and gratitude to ask you to help me warmly welcome our buddy, Ken Turan.
I don't know. I mean, after Ed's introductions, I can think, who is that guy? I'd like to meet that guy. You know? Sounds interesting. Well, you know, I don't have to tell you, I love being here at All Saints. Really, this is the highlight of my year. I mean, you think the more glamorous things would be the highlight of my year? But really, this is it. It's so stimulating and interesting and involving to be here, to talk to people about film. I really do love doing it. And, you know, as you know, I mostly a couple of things I want to say, but I mostly want to get to people's questions and hear what people want to know from me. I am just back, as you may know, from Sundance. They just announced the awards last night, and there are just one or two films I just wanted to highlight. They won't be out for a while, but, you know, knowing, you know, my taste and this audience taste, there are two films that I think would definitely be of interest that probably will be out sometime in the next year. One film is a film called Brooklyn. It was not it was a premiere. It's not eligible for any prize. Actually, both of the films I'm going to talk about were in the premiere section. They're not eligible for any prizes, but they were quite involving. One is called Brooklyn. It's from a novel by Colm Toibin. It's about a young woman who emigrates from Ireland to Brooklyn in the 1950s and kind of what happens to her life. It's really classic filmmaking. It's old-fashioned filmmaking, but done really, really, really well. It's superbly acted. Saoirse Ronan, who was started way back in Atonement, is the star. John Crowley is the director, a really excellent director who mostly does theater, has made some films. It's just a wonderful film. Fox Searchlight bought it, which if you know the independent world, they only take stuff they think is really good. They had 12 Years a Slave and films like that. So this will be out sometime in the next year, and believe me, if you are in this room, you will be happy with Brooklyn. So put that on your list. The other one is a film which I wasn't sure what I think of when I heard about it. I went to see it, and I was really more taken with it than I thought it would be. It's called The Last Days in the Desert, and it's directed by Los Angeles. Actually, I was just talking to John Horn. There's some thought of bringing the filmmaker here. He lives in Los Angeles. His name is Rodrigo Garcia. This is kind of a film about the 40 days that Jesus spent in the wilderness. It's kind of an imaginative look at it. It stars Ewan McGregor, who plays both Jesus and a demon who torments him. And as Justin Chang, who wrote about it in Variety, said, this plays much better than it sounds. It sounds, it really works. And one of the reasons this film is so successful is that it is absolutely stunning to look at. It was shot in the Sonoran Desert in Mexico, using only available light. It was shot by a man named Emmanuel Lubezki, who, if you're a film buff, you know is a man who shot Gravity, who shot Birdman. This is probably the best, as good a cinematographer as is working in the world today. And the film is just stunning to look at, and it's fascinating. And I think, again, if John Horn is correct and the filmmaker comes here to show the film, I would highly recommend everyone taking a look at it. So those are the two that I want to recommend. Well, maybe I'll mention another one at least. Opening night was a documentary. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on her name. Is it Nina Simone? Yeah, the Nina Simone documentary. What Happened, Miss Simone? She was just an exceptional singer who had a major involvement in the civil rights movement, but a person who had a lot of personal problems, personal difficulties. This is a film made with the cooperation of her estate and the cooperation of her family, and you really get just a really intense sense of what she was like as a person, what she went through. Really a remarkable documentary. So this was a good year for Sundance, and there'll be other stuff coming along from it. I wanted to say a few words, and I'll ask more specific questions if people have them about the Oscars. One of the things that interests me this year is that really it's well, first of all, I used to do more with the Oscars and think more about the Oscars. Being an Oscar prognosticator has become a full-time job for people, and not just one people. There are teams of people out there kind of analyzing statistics and, doing deep data research into the, I'm not kidding. I wish I was making this up. I'm not making this up. What has won in the past? Is it more likely to win as an actor if you played a writer or if you played an artist? People are just analyzing all kinds of data. So, because there's so much analysis going on, every year people, because it's their job, like to pretend it's an interesting race and nobody knows who's going to win. This is one of the rare years where actually people don't know who's going to win. It really is I think probably just a two-way race between everyone. Boyhood was a critical favorite. Everyone liked Boyhood. It was quite an accomplishment to go for 12 years making this film. And everyone thought that Boyhood had all the momentum, and then Birdman started winning some major prizes. Birdman won the Producers Guild Award. It won the SAG Ensemble Award, which showed it's a favorite among actors, and actors are a big chunk of the Academy membership. So now people think that Birdman has a good chance. And there's also, the possibility, though I frankly don't think it's going to happen, but the possibility that American Sniper might win because it's made so much money. It's gotten everyone's attention. There's nothing like money to get the attention of Hollywood. And everyone's saying, whoa, it's real money here. It is fascinating that, one of the things that's happened with this film is that they know, again, from data analysis, it has gotten people into movie theaters in parts of the country where they have basically given up going to the movies. So Hollywood, which is always feeling like it's at death's door, is kind of saying, look, money, But I don't think, personally, I think it's going to be between Birdman and Boyhood, and I don't know which way it's going to go. So, I mean, some things are obvious. I think Julianne Moore pretty much is a lock for Best Actress. Best Actor, again, it's kind of a toss-up between Michael Keaton or Eddie Redmayne, who was in The Theory of Everything. An interesting thing, there was an article that came out last week where someone, reminded, sometimes people seem to be headed for an Oscar because of a great performance that they gave, which is the case with Eddie Redmayne, and then a really bad film they were in comes out right around when the ballots are due. And I hate to be the first person to report this, but Eddie Redmayne is in a film called Jupiter Ascending, and it's not his best work. And the question is how, the film is interesting in a lot of ways, but it's not a wonderful performance. And the question is, how will this affect Oscar voters? It's an unknown. We'll find out. And I think, supporting actress, I think Patricia Arquette from Boyhood, most people seem to think. Supporting actor, J.K. Simmons from Whiplash. The foreign language category is an interesting one this year. There are two real contenders. I think Ida, the Polish film, which I thought was an exceptional film. And then there's, again, another kind of Eastern European film, Leviathan, the film from Russia. I think both of those will fight it out. And I think in documentaries, it will probably be Citizen4, just because it's such a historic situation. I don't know that I really think it's a great documentary, but it's Laura Poitras kind of being in the room with Edward Snowden while all this stuff went down, and it's so kind of galvanizing historically that I think the fact that it's not a great documentary is not going to really matter to people. People sometimes vote for what makes them feel good, and people want to feel that they're doing some good in the world by their Oscar votes, and I think voting for Citizen4 is a way to do that. I think that's it. I think that's everything. But as you know, I really want to hear from people. I want to know what people have to say, and I'm sure there's been a lot of controversies this year, and I'm sure someone will ask me about them, so I hope I have an answer.
Yeah, you're in all sites. Please raise your hand. The first question is right here. This woman, please. And if you will ask the question, and where's the other mic? Okay, right here. We'll be ready to go with this one. But you first, please.
So I'm so happy to be here. I wanted to go back to Sundance. I wanted to ask you how you pick the films that you see there. I know there are like 125, and are they picked for you? Do you pick them? How does that work?
It's a good question. There are too many to see, and because they are, those 125 are selected from something like 4,000 applicants. So so basically probably all of them have some reason to be seen. There are really no terrible films there. It works in two ways. I mean, there's some films I get to see ahead of time. I get to see, because the filmmakers want to be written about. I see some of them ahead of time, and anything anyone sends me ahead of time, I look at. So that's one way. The other way is I read like everyone. I mean, I see who's, just what you would do. Who's the director? Do I know the director? What's the source material? Who are the actors? It used to be, when they had longer program notes, I used to know, over the years, you get to know the taste of the programmers. And there's some people who I would say, okay, if this person wrote the note, I like it. And conversely, if this person wrote the note, no matter how good they say it is, I'm probably not going to like it. So it's kind of a Ouija board, And also, once you're there, all you do is everyone asks everyone else, what have you seen? What was good? And you try, and you catch it. The films play more than once, and you can catch up to them. If everyone tells you, that film you missed, that you didn't think was good, it's actually very good. So then you run and you catch up to it the next time. So it's a complicated process, but it's, and sometimes you miss something good, but I try not to.
Second question.
Yes, Ignacio Castuera. I was worried before I got here about American Sniper. You have worried me even more. And in a place like ours, I think that the issue of Islamophobia, which is so clear right there at the very beginning and throughout the movie, is something that ought to concern us. And you, as you know, your former rabbi was the resident rabbi.
Yes, so I know.
Of blessed memory. Yeah. And how can we counter that? I mean, just in case people don't know, the opening scene is a lie. First of all, it's a lie built this way. The sniper never wrote that the mother handed the grenade to the sun. And second, the American Sniper also took liberties with truth, as it has been recently discovered. So the Islamophobia that is promoted by saying, well, these mothers don't care. They give these guns or these weapons to the children. And that is really worrisome. And I wonder how someone like you and others can counter that kind of thing in the name of truth, in the name of justice, in the memory of your rabbi.
Wow, that's a tall order. Well, I think, just for me, I mean, one of the good things that's come out of American Sniper is that a lot of people are talking about these issues and writing about these issues. There's a wonderful piece. There are actually two very good pieces in the LA Times this morning. The one I think of especially by a staff writer named Lorraine Ali, who has relatives in Baghdad. And she talks very feelingly about, the marginalization of, Muslim people in this film and in film in general. And I think the way to counter it is to have people read things that take the opposite point of view. I mean, I think that's the best, certainly reading these things influences my thinking about it. And I think that's the best way we can do it. A lot of stuff has been written. Jeffrey Fleischman has also a big essay in the Times this morning about the film. And I think, in some ways, the fact that this discussion has been opened up by this film is a way to get people to see the limits of their thinking. And I think, that's the best way to do it, to say, look, there's another point of view. It's expressed well here. Read this and think about it.
Next question, please.
Yeah. Yes. Good morning.
Morning.
I'm very glad to be here today. My question has to do with Selma. I've seen most of the nominated movies, and I was disappointed that the star of Selma, I won't try to pronounce his last name because I don't want to mutilate it, but David was not nominated, and that Ava DuVernay was also not nominated. I wonder how you felt about that. But also, I think that the importance of the subject matter of a movie should have some bearing on the actors that are nominated, especially if they give a fantastic performance. Yeah. And I know that usually somebody gets left out who deserved to be nominated, and I think that was David this year. And I wanted to know who you thought, if you had to omit someone from the 5 nominees, if you had to omit someone.
Is that question for me?
Yes, sir. From the 5 nominees, and 4 of them are based on real people. Yeah. I know who I would eliminate, or I think I do. I just wondered who you would leave out so that David could be let in.
I can't.
Will you hold your head up right behind her, Chris? Yes, for the next one. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Who were the 4? I mean, I can't remember. I mean, first of all, I agree that his performance was phenomenal, and I was really saddened when he wasn't in there. I don't know, as you say, it's impossible to know the thinking of how that happened, but I thought it was a wonderful performance. But I don't know who was, I can't remember who the 5 people are. I'm serious. Cumberbatch. Who would I eliminate? Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, it's a tough one. I don't know. I mean, let me come up to. I'll have to think about that. I mean, they're all good. I'll say one thing. I would eliminate someone. I don't know who it was. I think he should have been one of the 5. I'm not sure who I would push out off the top of my head, but I would put. If push came to shove, I would push one of those people out because I really think that's a great performance. Should have been in there. Yeah.
Next question. Yes.
How did the Imitation Game get lost among the favorites?
That's a good question. And I really like that film a lot. But, and again, you can never count Harvey Weinstein out. This is a Harvey Weinstein film, and he is, turning over every stone and moving every boulder to try and get people to pay more attention. There's an interesting thing that has happened with Imitation Game, which really troubles me. I know when I talk to people about it, people in the business, everyone accepts that it's really good, but there's a way in which and I totally disagree with this, but I can feel it. There are people who are feeling it's too conventional. And, it's as if, the reason I'm troubled by this, and again, this makes me crazy. I'm not saying this because I support it. I'm totally opposed to it. People act as if we are drowning in well-made films like The Imitation Game. And as you know, they are very rare, but somehow people, oh, it's like the King's Speech, this is what I hear a lot. But I think it's really shortchanging this film. I'm saddened and disappointed that this is not one of the favorites. But what I'm feeling is that it's not one of the favorites. Though, again, I wouldn't count, again, nothing with Harvey Weinstein's name on it can you count out. But I think people don't really understand the world we're living in. They're just thinking back and they're saying, oh, there are always films like this. They're not always films like this. And I don't know, I'm fearful that some of the same thing will happen with Brooklyn, that people will say, oh, we see a lot of these films. Well, we don't see a lot of these films, and I think really the attention should be paid. I totally agree.
Over here, to the left.
So much for joining us this morning. It's really great to listen to your perspective. I'm curious to know a question about Sundance specifically. I've read a lot about the documentaries that premiered there, and there's one in particular that kind of struck me. It's called Going Clear, about the Church of Scientology. I'm curious to know if you saw it, and if you did, what your thoughts were, and then more broadly, maybe what documentary features were like this year at Sundance. It sounds like they're getting a lot of buzz.
Yeah, well, the documentaries, I think, always are the highlight of Sundance. I mean, I tend to lean toward documentaries because I really, I can learn something. It's not even if it's not a good documentary, it's not a complete waste of my time. And sometimes with dramatic films, if they're no good, there's really nothing there for you. You feel like 2 hours of my life, and this is what I end up with. So I never feel that with a documentary. I saw Going Clear. The director is a very solid veteran documentarian. Alex Gibney did Taxi to the Dark Side, and he collaborated with Lawrence Wright, who wrote this big, massive book on Scientology. So it's very thorough. It's very involving. If you've read the book, if you've read about Scientology, there's like nothing really new in it, is I think was the general feeling, even though seeing some of this stuff on film is very involving and very kind of unnerving. But in terms of anything new about what goes on there, or at least what Lawrence Wright says goes on there wasn't anything new, so it didn't really ignite people. I think the other documentary I should mention that you remind me I should have mentioned that really did kind of involve people is this documentary called The Hunting Ground, which is about really an epidemic of rapes on college campuses. It was made by Kirby Dick and produced by Amy Zierling. They did The Invisible War a couple years ago about rape in the military. And they were not, this topic is so similar that quite frankly, they were not really eager to do another film on a very similar topic. But the situation was so serious and so many people came to them and said, you have to deal with this, that they did it. And it's quite a moving film. This is something that's been going on that I think the culture hasn't focused on, the sexual violence on campus. And this is a film that really brings it into focus and is quite a good film. And I think will have, it will make really an impact once it's released.
Good morning. Could you please mention a few of the sleepers that you've enjoyed from last year?
Oh, gosh. I should be prepared for this question, and I'm not. For a while I thought Ida was a sleeper, then it got nominated for an Oscar, so I guess it doesn't qualify anymore. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, I'm sorry. If you give me an email, I will go look, and I'll send you an email. Seriously, but for right now, I just can't remember. Too much pressure.
Yes, please.
Mr. Turan, one of the most exquisite films I've seen in years, Mr. Turner. It was nominated for 4 or 5 technical categories, but none for acting. And the actress that played his maid was unbelievable. I'm wondering if you could comment as to why the Academy passed it up in those areas.
Yeah, no, as you may know, I'm a big fan of Mr. Turner. I think I actually made it my #1 film of the year in my 10 best list. I really like that film. But even as I wrote about it, and I've seen it a couple of times, it is in some ways a difficult film. It's not a straight ahead, biopic. The accents are a little difficult to understand. The way Mike Leigh, who's a brilliant director of actors and has been for, decades, Secrets and Lies is the film he did that made the most impact on the Academy. I think it was just too tough for the Academy, and there was too much competition. I mean, I was happy it at least got the nominations it did. Dick Pope nominated for cinematography, costume design nominee. I think the acting, I was surprised. I'd hoped Timothy Spall, who played Turner, would have gotten nominated. Mike Leigh is such a fanatical director. He had Timothy Spall, who plays Turner. Literally 2 years before filming started, he had Timothy Spall take painting lessons so that he'd be comfortable with a brush in his hand when he filmed those scenes. And that's the kind of level of intensity that Mike Leigh works under. And the characters get created from the ground up. The characters are more alive, and actors love playing them more than almost any other director I can name. So the acting, I agree, it's exceptional. I wish the Academy would have recognized it. But again, the film is a little tough, and when there are other options, they don't always pick the tough option. They don't take the tough road. They take the easier road.
Can you hear me? Interstellar, a mind-blowing Christopher Nolan movie. Matthew McConaughey coming off of Dallas Flyers Club. It's such great acting, bigger than life film. There's no talk. It didn't get nominated for very much. It seems to be snubbed, and I'm curious your thoughts and if you can comment on that.
Yeah, I was a little saddened by that. I think Interstellar is a better film than it's got credit for. I do have a couple of thoughts about it. I mean, again, we live in a world where most of, one of the things that people say, one of the reasons that people say Selma didn't get more nominations was that they were late getting out DVDs and they didn't send out as many DVDs as other films, just for technical reasons, And we live in a world where I think even Academy voters, if they try to see things in theaters, often they end up seeing things at home. And Interstellar, I mean, I saw it in, IMAX 65 millimeter, and it's kind of mind-blowing that way. I think it's less mind-blowing if you don't see it that way. And I think that hurt it. And the other thing that hurt it, what I sense, even though I wasn't, I didn't really hear it myself, but that the studio possibly overhyped this film before it came out, and that people kind of just felt, well, it's good, but it's not that good. And I think kind of the fact, if they would have pulled back a little more, that might have helped it. I mean, so much of our reaction to films is against what we've heard. That's why I'm always encouraging people, go early, go the first week, stand on the line, or else you'll be responding to what your friends thought, not to the film. So I think that might have happened with Interstellar, but I think that's he's a marvelous filmmaker. I think he's one of the best we have, and I was sad it didn't do better with the Academy, but I don't know. Yeah.
To your left, behind you, right here behind you.
Oh.
Thank you very much for being here. And I am totally unqualified to ask this question because I haven't seen a film for 15 years.
Why are you even here?
Because I was very drawn to see two films within a 2-week period.
Oh my God.
The Imitation Game and The Theory of Everything.
Yeah.
And in light of what Ed Sermon said today about our all being one, why do we have to have a winner?
Well, it's a good question, and there are actors and filmmakers, I think Marlon Brando was famously one, who just don't believe in awards, who don't participate in it. I mean, there are people who agree with that feeling. We live in a competitive society. I mean, we don't have to choose to participate, but that's why we have these things. I don't know.
Ken, thank you so much for being here. Another small documentary, The Mask We Live In. Were you able to see that at Sundance?
I did not see that one. It sounded interesting. I think it's about notions of masculinity. Is that what it's about?
Yes, it's a follow-up to Misrepresentation. That Jen Siebel-Newsom did a one sort of looking at how women are portrayed in the media, and then as she thought about it more, she went through the process and said, hey, with my own son, how do I approach how he looks at the world? So I would just encourage everybody to see it.
No, it sounded good. Again, at the time, it's just, as I said, there are 125 features playing over a 10-day period, and you just can't see them all. Yeah.
Next question here.
Yeah, hi. My name's Tim Dirks. I was just wondering, as a film critic and reviewer, what's the process? When you're watching the film, do you take notes or do you wait till later? Do you stew on it? Do you read other people, to get an idea of, overall viewpoints and so on? What's the deal on it?
I definitely stew on it if I have the time. It's a multi-part process. I take a lot of notes. Anything, because otherwise, even little half thoughts, if I don't write them down, I know from experience they're going to disappear. I take them on a pad in the dark, which means that a certain percentage of my brilliant thoughts I can't read. I go home and I say, or I write over twice on the same page, So it's an imperfect process. And then I think about it, and the more time I have to think about it, the better it is. I don't sit down and have designated thinking time. It's just, when I'm walking around, when I'm having lunch, if films are interesting, they really roll around in your head, and I'm kind of wrestling with them. What I definitely don't do, and what I avoid as much as possible, is knowing what anyone else thinks. These has to be, all you have as a critic is your own opinions, and we're susceptible. If other people who sound like they know what they're talking about say something, it could influence me, and that would be bad. I don't, believe it or not, I go with my wife and my friends to screenings, and I have a rule: I don't talk after the film. I won't talk about it because I don't want to be influenced, because I am susceptible, and this has to be what I'm feeling, or else it's of no value. So that's one thing I do, is stay away from other people's ideas. I don't read nothing until I'm done writing.
Next question here.
The short Israeli-French film Aya. I've read great things about it. I can't seem to find it playing anywhere except in the East Coast. Have you seen it? What do you think?
I haven't seen it. Shorts are very hard. Even for critics, shorts are difficult to see. They don't play as widely. I think the new art is about to show some of the shorts. I don't know if they're going to show that one, but go online and look around, because they do, as it gets closer to Oscar time, it didn't happen a few years ago, but now these shorts show for a week theatrically, mostly. So, the Lemleys? Is the Lemleys doing it? Okay. Yeah, so it is, they're watchable, but probably only for a week.
Please.
Yes. Earlier this morning at the first service, Dr. Bacon talked about authority and owning your authority. I know that in the 40s, Hedda Hopper made movies, made stars, was very much involved with that. So can you talk a little bit about your authority in the films? Are you?
Oh, what a great question.
Are you good authority, or are you using yours for bad results?
You have to come to my sermon.
I know.
And also, the final part of this is, do you think things would change if they had an Academy Award for film critics?
I don't know. I don't know that would. Well, it wouldn't make the gentleman back here happy. It would be more competition. No, the word I think of when I think of what I do is not authority. I think more of influence. I think there are ways you can have influence and ways you don't have influence. And I think every critic is aware of this. With the great big films, for better or worse, if the films have literally tens of millions of dollars to spend on advertising, critics don't have any influence. I write about these films because people want to read stuff, and I think sometimes there's interesting things to be said, but there's no influence possible, no authority possible. With the smaller films within your market, local critics have influence, But again, it's a hit and miss thing. There's some films that the power of the times and combined with what I write can get people to the theater. But not everything. It's not like a universal law that I can make people do something or not. I try and use what influence I have on the positive. Frankly, one of the things I don't do anymore is unless I shouldn't say 100%, but almost 100%, I try not to write negative reviews on very small films, a film that I could kill with a negative review. I can't swear that I never do that, but I try not to do that because I think I am only one person, and I don't feel comfortable having that much authority, influence, power. I feel more comfortable using that to push smaller films. Actually one small film that was an Oscar nominated, but people might not have seen, is A Song of the Sea, wonderful Irish animated film that's still playing. And I'm more comfortable using my whatever influence or authority I have, getting people to go to small films that I think are worthwhile that they might not see. I'm less interested in the little, in destroying small films. My taste is not, one of the things I used to say is that, God doesn't tell me what a good film is. It's just my opinion. It's just my idea. So I don't feel comfortable killing something. And I try not to do that.
Oh, you've already got the point of the sermon. Here's the mic over here. Thank you very much.
So, hi again. I know you wrote a piece about this a couple of weeks ago, but could you talk about the issue of truth in the movie? Like the gentleman mentioned about you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, what I really feel is that, I would like films, partly because we live in a world, as someone, I think there was a letter to the Times today, we live in a world where people take their history from the movies. So I wish that films were as accurate as they could be. But really, we are expecting too much from film if we expect it to be accurate. I think it's in the nature of film to glamorize, to blow up. Even when it's trying to be accurate, it can't be. I mean, the notion I wrote about in my piece was that when I saw the premiere of All the President's Men, I was at the time a reporter for the Washington Post. I had nothing to do with Watergate, but I worked at the newsroom. And there's a scene where Dustin Hoffman, playing Carl Bernstein, gets hung up on, he's calling for some information, and the guy just hangs up the phone on him. And my first response, sitting in the theater with the big screen and Dustin Hoffman, and I said, oh, how exciting, how glamorous to be hung up on, And then I thought, you work in that newsroom, you've been hung up on, it's a horrible feeling, But the movies made it look glamorous, and that was such a lesson to me. Even when movies try and be accurate, it's just not in the nature of the medium to be accurate. So I think no one should expect it. We should want it, but we shouldn't be surprised if films are not historically accurate. They almost can't do it.
Over here to your left, to the back.
Hi, my name is Connie Corley. I have two sisters who are filmmakers, but my medium is radio. But I had two questions for you. One is, there's a lot of films out about people with dementia, Alzheimer's, sort of kind of dreary movies about growing older. Okay, and I'm a gerontologist, so I don't like to watch those films. But I thought about, what's your take on the growth of these movies coming out? And secondly, I also had an inspiration of getting your book to give to my mother for her 90th birthday, and she has dementia, but movies and watching old movies, just like music tends to help people with memory problems. Have you ever thought of having a kind of a list of great movies for people with dementia?
I don't know. I can honestly say I've never. Actually, that reminds me, another sleeper, there's a wonderful documentary, I referenced it a little bit, called Alive Inside. This, I guess clearly some people have seen it. It's about work that someone discovered that people with even serious dementia, if you put earphones on their head and you play their favorite music, which you find out from their family, they wake up. It's just the most astonishing thing you've ever seen. It's a fascinating documentary. It's called Alive Inside. I don't know, I think these things go in waves. Why there are these films now, I don't know. Maybe they're aimed towards us, who are just dealing with these issues. But it's nice to see them. I think Julianne Moore does a really remarkable job in that film. I'm glad to see them doing something serious.
Far to the right over here.
Hi. Talking about the comments about masculinity reminded me of another movie that a lot of people thought should have made the list for foreign films, Force Majeure.
Oh, yeah.
How did you feel about that one? And, were you...
I think that was,
by it?
I thought Force Majeure, that was one exclusion that really bothered me. I think that bothered me as much as any of the others. I think that's a remarkably good film. I would have sworn it would be in the final, among the finalists. It was not. What happened, it's just the foreign language films work in an odd way. They have a panel that finally picks the winners, and the panel just didn't, for whatever reason, their taste went elsewhere. But I think that's a spectacular film, and it is very much, as you say, about ideas of masculinity. It's a Swedish film, just an exceptionally good film. It was at Cannes, where it won an award at Cannes, and I think it's kind of, one of the many crimes of this year that it's not It's not. It's called Force Majeure, Forcemajure, and if it's not available on, streaming DVD, it should be soon. It's quite a good film. It's as good as any film that was nominated, so I would highly recommend that one. Another sleeper.
Last question over here. Yes, please.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about an Ethiopian movie. Angelina Jolie produced it. It's a really good movie with a really important subject matter. Why didn't it do so well? Why don't people want to see that?
Well, that's a good question. I forget that. What's in that? I saw.
Defret?
Defret, yes. I've seen that film. I interviewed the director at Sundance last year. I wrote a lot about. Again, that's a good example of a small film that I couldn't help. I did as much as I could. Sometimes serious films people just don't want to go to. I mean, it's a terrible thing, but people just, when it's Friday night and they're thinking of going to the movies, I think people don't understand how involving films on a serious subject matter can be, how dramatically involving they can be. They feel that they just want to escape in a more mindless way. But I think that's a very dramatic film, and it is about a serious issue, and I thought they hoped that it could get a foreign language nomination, but it was a very tough year this year. But I think Defret is an excellent film, and I feel bad that I couldn't have helped it more. It's Difret, if anyone wants to access it.
Let's see, let me make a couple announcements, see if we have any more time. So Ken will stay to sign books if you want to get books. And if you would like to be on an email blast that I send out every Thursday saying what's going to be happening here on Sunday, we would like for you to sign the green sign-up sheets that are at all the exits. If you're already a member of All Saints Church, you don't need to sign this. We've been having members sign up. This is for those of you who would like to be informed, including the fact is that we are in conversation with both the screenwriter and director, Rodrigo Garcia, of About Last Days in the Desert, as well as Julie Lynn, who is the major production company, Mockingbird Films. She's actually a member here. She's a Jewish member of All Saints Church, which is really wonderful. And Rodrigo was here in church on All Saints Sunday because we had his father, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, in our necrology. And so he's a great, great friend. And we'll either have him here and the movie, or just have him here to talk about the movie after you've seen it. We'll do something about that. But in order for you to be informed, please fill out our forms. And also, we would love to have your financial support of All Saints Church. There are pledge cards all over the place, and we would love for you, as we move to creating our budget for the year, this year, have your support. Now, let's have one more question. How about that? Let's see.
What about Timbuktu?
I like Timbuktu. Timbuktu is one of the foreign language films. It's about, I forget which country, is it Tanzania it's from? It's in Mali. It's about what happens in a city, in a country, when fundamentalists take over. And it's a very artfully done film. And, it's playing in theaters now, and it's a good film.
So let's thank Ken Turan for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Okay, get your book signed. The rest of us are going to church.